And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Welcome to Open Connection, your host, Robert Pictou. Our show today comes to you from the traditional and unceded territory of the Tsimshian people. Focus on the sustainability and enhancement of fish stocks and their habitats. Fisheries Renewal BC is a provincial incentive in British Columbia. It involves a board of directors representing various stakeholders, including government, Indigenous peoples, and regional fishery interests. On today's Open Connection, we open our archives to bring you this story from 2000.
Fisheries Renewal BC spent around $1 million funding programs in northwestern BC last year. Board of Directors Chair Joy Thorkelson says they're really pleased with the number of communities they have been able to reach.
We have 21 partnerships all over British Columbia, including a partnership in Terrace that covers Kitimat, the Nass, all the way up to halfway up the Skeena. We have another partnership group that is out of Smithers that covers the other half of the Skeena and up around the Bulkley area. And we have a partnership in Prince George. So that's sort of our northern partnership groups. We have partnership groups, like I say, 21 of them throughout the province. And so we're very satisfied that the types of projects that are going on here are being repeated all over the province.
Of the $1 million spent in the Northwest, about $550,000 went towards projects on the North Coast. The chair of the local Fisheries Renewal Council, Bryce Barnwell, says all of the council's 28 members have worked well together, despite the fact they represent different sectors of the industry. He says they have been able to get funding for a lot of programs since the council was created 2 years ago.
And we've been very successful. We work very closely with DFO we've been doing stream inventories and habitat assessments, and of course there was a lot of training required to train people to go out and do these, and most of these people that went out and did these jobs were displaced fishermen, shore workers.
First Nations make up a big part of the North Coast's council. Metlakatla Hereditary Chief Clarence Nelson says his community and others have benefited from Fisheries Renewal funding.
Looking at the pictures in the back here, what Metlakatla community has done with funding that they received, clearing the streams within their area. And I see like Kitkatla out there, they've worked with some of theirs. So it's benefiting the communities, but on the coast.
Now it's a question of whether or not Fisheries Renewal will be around after the provincial government puts together its budget for this year. Premier Dan Miller says he's pleased with the results and will fight to ensure it will survive.
There will be, as you know, a change in leader, but I will argue quite strongly that we ought to continue funding Fisheries Renewal. I just think the results are there, they're demonstrable. That's in terms of the conservation of the stocks themselves and in the kind of training and employment opportunities that is created.
The provincial government has made a commitment to fund us for at least another 3 years. The level of funding is still being developed because we have a number of options ahead of us, and we're examining them now in concert with the provincial government. We're going to the federal government to see if they'd like to be an upfront partner in Fisheries Renewal and
Thorkelson says Fisheries Renewal works closely with the feds through funding partnerships on programs, and it would be a perfect fit in the organization. She says the final budget should be together by March.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Thank you for staying with us. Winters are notorious for crippling those who do not pay their respects and underestimate Old Man Winter. He's defeated armies, caused civilization to retreat, and has the power to move mountains of ice. And yet people still tempt fate by venturing into the unknown without sufficient supplies. Let us return to the archives with Ed White.
With more and more people enjoying some form of backcountry activity in the winter comes the increased chance that somebody will get lost, have an accident, or experience drastic weather that would force them to overnight in the wilderness. Hopefully they're prepared for the worst, but it's unlikely that most people would be. It's also a sure bet that most people wouldn't know what to do to survive a dozen or more hours in the cold black of night.
This spot here for building a Quincy is fairly It's pretty flat. It's a good spot. There's lots of snow, and it's close to an open area in case there's an air search that comes by for me. I can, get out there and wave and be seen.
That's an example of an important element needed to survive. Keeping a positive mindset and not panicking will allow you to make a clear-headed and most likely correct decision.
When you have to survive in the wilderness, it's important that you're prepared at the outset. If you're not prepared, that kind of takes away from your chances. But you also have to have a good mindset, a positive mindset, rather than a negative one. Rather than saying that I can't get out, I can't do this, I can't survive. You have to be able to say that you can, and you have to be able to make the decision that's going to make you survive. It's going to allow you to survive.
There are several possible scenarios which might see somebody having to spend a night outdoors, and each of them will determine what kind of a shelter you'd build. A blizzard or a serious injury would probably mean a quick and easy to construct shelter would be best. If your snowmobile breaks down with enough daylight left, you could go for something more intricate like a quincy.
The quincy takes a lot of energy to build. So it's one of the things you have to keep in mind if you're willing to put in the hours that it takes to build a quincy. A good hour to get the snow up, another hour to let it settle, another hour to dig it out. It takes a lot of energy, and if you're in a situation where it's cold or you're wet, you might want to think twice about building one. But once they're built and you're inside and set up, you can withstand severe weather.
The quincy is great when the temperature is minus 15 or colder. Inside the structure, the temperature will stay about 0. But if you're running out of daylight, try to find a tree well with overhanging branches where you can clear away the snow and cut some boughs for a bed and covers. Or you could also crawl under some logs to get a little bit of shelter.
Sit down. The main thing is you got to get off the snow, right? And there you go. And then put some boughs on. You're on the ground. You're getting heat from the ground. We can easily get in there. You can get by. You're just out of the wind.
Something fairly easy that doesn't take a lot of time to build is a trench. If you don't have a shovel, you can use snowshoes or skis to build it, then use them as the base for the roof.
If I got a little snowfall while I'm in there, wouldn't make any difference. I'm already sealed in. And if it turned to rain, I would still have snow on top, but I would put a space blanket or whatever on top of the snow to keep the rain from going through.
The digging and cutting of the boughs and putting the finishing touches on the trench should take about 20 minutes.
It goes back in 6 foot or so. It's a little wide in the way it looks here, because I've got part of the entrance plugged. Like that.
When your shelter is completed, Caddy recommends a little bit of exercise before you sack out.
I would go for a good brisk walk before I go in there. Any kind of shelter, quincy, snow cave, tree well, trench, doesn't matter. Before you crawl in, go for a quick walk. Why is that? You get warm.
But don't drink too much water, or else you'll have to leave the shelter to go to the bathroom and the heat will escape. But before you crawl into your emergency shelter, set up a light so you'll have a better chance of being found.
Helicopter, aircraft, searches, anybody can see that. It could be that, I go to sleep in here and I wouldn't hear them go past.
But why would you just happen to have that kind of a light with you? Because before you left for your day of fun, you took the time to prepare for the unknown.
Some power bars, stuff like that. A little bit of chicken noodle soup goes a long way to warming you up.
Food, a little bit of extra clothing, a jackknife, a small rope, a space blanket, and a tiny stove and flares are all items you'd like to have with you on your overnighter.
They're great because you can signal passing aircraft, fire a couple of those off. They can also start a fire for you. Quite handy in that respect. Very simple to use. You just load them in the little ejector here and bang them off. They're quite handy.
White recommends everybody have some kind of an emergency kit with things like matches, a candle, and a bowl and spoon in it. Also, a shovel and an avalanche probe and beacon are things that could save your life or somebody in your party if an avalanche hits.
You could find the person, eh? Alright. And they also have
The extra stuff doesn't take up that much room, but you'll sure be glad you packed it if disaster strikes. Both men want everyone to realize how important it is to stay put and stay calm if you're stranded. Running around in a state of panic will burn off a lot of energy, which may end up killing you in a matter of hours. If you let the situation get the better of you, there's no telling what crazy things might happen.
For instance, they'll cross roads and keep on going into the bush for no apparent reason. A lot of people, just out of the fear, I suppose, of being embarrassed, will sometimes avoid other people because they don't want to be found. They want to get out on their own so badly that they don't want to admit that I'm lost and I need help, and that's, like I say, one of the emotional responses that people exhibit.
To help keep panic at bay, you must tell yourself that people will know you haven't returned and a search and rescue team is heading out to find you at daybreak. Another thing White says you have to avoid is hypothermia. The brain shuts down, oftentimes causing the victim to think they're warm, which leads to the removal of clothing, then death. But in order to be rescued, you must tell somebody where you're going and when you'll be back, and be prepared.
Something does happen, which, the odds are on that it's not going to happen to you, but when it does, it's nice to have a few things. It's nice to be able to make a cup of tea or a bowl of soup or to light a fire if you have to stay out overnight, especially in the wintertime. There's nothing worse than spending a 14-hour night with no fire.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Welcome back to Open Connection. Commissioned in 1924, the Delta King and Delta Queen entered service in 1927 for the California Transportation Company for service between Sacramento and San Francisco. After a wartime service in the United States Navy, the Delta King was towed to Kitimat to serve as home during the construction of Alcan Aluminum Plant and Camano Dam Power Project. Today, the Delta King is permanently moored in San Francisco and home to a 44-room hotel. Let us return to the archives as some local residents recall the days when the Delta King was in Kitimat.
It was 1952 and there was a severe housing shortage in Kitimat, so the Kitimat constructors bought the Delta King. The engines and stern wheel were removed and the bunkhouse was placed solidly in the ground.
Construction of the boat itself fascinated us. All the washrooms, and there was 1-inch thick marble partitions on around the toilets and wash basins, and everybody was looking at this white marble, and they really thought it was great. It was really a nice looking boat.
Inside the ship lived more than 200 men, many of whom were recent immigrants from Europe and either single men or far away from their wives and families. The rooms that they took up residence in weren't very spacious.
My room was perhaps just wide enough to accommodate 2 small beds and a small table between the beds and a window and 2 chairs.
The quarters were very dim lit, no windows. We were under the surface. The little dike that was built around the Delta King, we were below that, so to speak, below sea level.
While the Delta King provided accommodation, it also supplied steam heat for many buildings in the area, and as a result, the boilers were going all the time.
These were oil-burning boilers, and the oil apparently would just, a huge black cloud of oily soot would come wafting across the smelter site. And apparently, I read one fellow was saying that he can remember having to wipe his chair off and wipe his desk off all the time because of this soot that was flying all over everything, and not one piece of paper was mailed out without having this sooty material on it.
During the 1950s, Kitimat was populated predominantly by males in their early 20s or 30s. With very few women and families living in the community, the Delta King became one of the party places.
The only entertainment was what we created ourselves. And obviously, there were parties going on all the time on a regular basis. And it was a regular thing that anybody could go into any house, into a party, as long as you brought a Kitimat suitcase. And the Kitimat suitcase was a 12-pack of beer.
Now, if you want a night shift and you want to sleep during the day, that might be a little bit of a problem once in a while. But it was normally, we're young and stuff, so it wasn't that bad, like a party was going on every night. Somebody was partying. Security came once in a while, quieten things down a little bit, but never got really out of hand.
Some people had boxes and boxes of beer and liquor. I was invited by a man. He says, "Why don't you come over to my place for a drink?" His place was lined with boxes, full boxes of alcohol. "What do you want? Whiskey, cognac, beer, it's all here." He spent a fortune. So I was amazed.
While the booze was flowing, another common form of entertainment on the Delta King was gambling.
I know I lost a few bucks there and I made a little bit money, you know. But the best thing was for anyone to sell the booze there, you know. You always got your cut there. And these were the jolly good days, you know. I mean, it was very nice for everybody to participate in it, you know.
Every payday, there were lots of stories about people losing their entire paycheck to the gambling tent. It was crazy, a crazy time.
After 7 years, the days of the Delta King in Kitimat ended in 1959. After a number of ownership changes, the ship can now be found anchored in Sacramento, California. After being restored to its original appearance, it's now a theater, restaurant, hotel, and museum. If you'd like to see more on the history of the Delta King, there's a permanent display of an exhibit at Kitimat's Centennial Museum.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
The first National Hockey League Oldtimers tournament, or tournament featuring teams composed of former NHL players, was held in 1975. Taking place in Ontario, featuring over teams for over 1,200 players in 4 divisions. Selection was based on age and the player's background. In this final segment of Open Connection, we return to the archives to an Oldtimers game in Kitimat.
The NHL Oldtimers arrive in Kitimat about 45 minutes before game time. This would be their final game of a tough road trip, 22 games in 23 days. In fact, the night before, the team played in Medicine Hat, Alberta.
This trip is pretty tough because we have, I think we've been back to Vancouver about 10 times. It's amazing that they all know us by names right now, that every time we have to go to a certain location and in BC, we have to go back to the origin of Vancouver in order to make our flight connection. So, but outside of that, it's been a very, very successful tour.
A select team from Kitimat and Terrace were hoping to grab some of that success, but over the past 11 years, the NHL Oldtimers have lost less than 10 games. However, one of those losses came in Kitimat about a decade ago. As a result, the Oldtimers are always ready for this annual contest.
They have a pretty good hockey club here, and we have missed a couple guys, but we'll do our best, and we haven't lost very much, but we got a lot of pride, and we'll give it our all our best.
It's very good for us because a lot of times you play teams where you don't have that competition, and it gets to a point where it's kind of a boring game for the fans.
One guy that's never boring is Dave Tiger Williams. In his NHL days, he always tried to get the opposition off their game, and he still does today. The NHL all-time penalty minute leader relishes the intimidator role, so a certain reporter tried to get him fired up before the game.
A guy like you, why do you have to wear elbow pads?
Elbow pad? Well, what if you fall down? What if you're running into some idiot in the media and you want to elbow him in the head? Why would you want to hurt your elbow when you can use the elbow pad to hurt him?
For the NHL Oldtimers, the arena is their home away from home. Even a hectic travel schedule doesn't outweigh the positives.
Well, just to get back together with the guys you've played with or against, get a chance to swap stories, and we just, reminisce. It's a good time.
Well, I get to try and lose some weight on the road here, so it's just nice to see everybody. It's nice to trade some old trade some old stories, and pretend how good we were and that sort of thing. And it's just nice to see, for me, it's nice to see that everyone is still together, still healthy, and still enjoys the game.
Right from the outset, this game provides lots of thrills. In fact, the local select players scored in the opening minute, but less than 30 seconds later, the NHL Oldtimers replied. It was just the kind of game everyone was hoping for. Imagine if you were playing alongside your boyhood idols. A couple players were given the opportunity.
It's tough keeping your concentration out there. Guys playing pretty nervous. We're working pretty hard just to keep up with these guys, and they're just cycling around, making it look so easy.
I've been waiting 25 years for this, and this is just sitting here is good enough for me. I don't have to play. It's just, I mean, Lafleur there has been my hero since I was a little kid listening to him on the radio. It's just to play beside him is incredible.
While the outcome was being determined on the ice, a number of organizations off the ice came out winners.
K-Met Crime Stoppers, this is our major fundraiser of the year. It helps out terrorists also. It also helps out minor hockey. There is money that's given to them for helping out during the function.
After 2 periods of hockey, the locals were winning by a pair of goals, and the Oldtimers realized it wouldn't be easy to battle back.
They know how to play the game also. I mean, their legs eventually might be a little better than ours, but we'll try to compensate with experience and see what happens.
I'm very impressed. I think it is one of the best teams we never met in the last 4 years. I remember a couple years ago we had a game here, we won 4-3 at the end of the third period, and that's the same team, maybe a lot better. And that's a young squad, and I'm very impressed. They passed the puck very well. They had a good chance to score. We have to work hard, and what the worst part for us, that's our last game, and that's a tough one for us.
Game's not over yet. Game's not over yet. They're starting to slow down. We'll take over from here on in, I think.
But little did Tiger know, along with the rest of the NHL Oldtimers, that they would be done like dinner. The select players had a deeper bench, and they scored some timely goals, and throughout they received some solid goaltending. In the end, the locals won in an upset, 9-7 over the NHL Oldtimers.
We've got some incentive now. We've got all summer to think about this now. When we're out fishing from here till next November, we got something to focus on, and that'll be Kitimat.
I think every time we play Kitimat, they always come up with a strong game. And they did it tonight. So we were due, I think, for a losing game. So that's hockey.
That felt good. The goalie saved us. Junior and Brett, they played great, and they pulled it out for us.
Very sweet. Sort of a surprise after last year. The team played good in front. No shots. Well, not really that many shots anyway. Other than that, the other goalie done pretty good too.
For those that took part or watched it firsthand, it was a great night of hockey, a night in Kitimat that won't be forgotten.
In our classroom, Mr. Chapman gave us a poster that we had to do, and it was a contest in the Forestry Week, so National Forestry Week. So we had to make the poster, and I made the poster, and he sent it off to the forestry building.
How'd you make out?
I got first place here, and when I went to the provincials, I didn't get anything.
That I put a poster in for the National Forest Week poster, and I sent mine away with Clea's, and my poster got second in regionals, and I was sent to provincials, and I guess they liked my poster better than Clea's. No offense. Fair.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Open Connection. The greatest distance in the existence of man is not from here to there, but the connection from his mind and heart. If we can conquer that distance, we can soar like an eagle and realize our immensity within. I'm Robert Pictou.